My name is Robin Huggins. I'm Client Services Director for MBN Solutions, a UK-based data talent and people solutions business. We solve talent problems in the data space by collaborating with a community of practitioners, managers, leaders, academics and enthusiasts. In each episode of our podcast, we take a deep dive into one of the topics currently challenging the data leaders within our community, with a special guest providing their input based on their background and experience in the data space. In this episode, our topic is early careers in the data sector. Joining me today to discuss the topic in more detail is a data leader who thinks many, but not all, skills in data can be taught in a supportive work environment, providing the learner has passion and the ability to learn. Calum Mather's career has taken him from IT through data and business intelligence to HR, operations and marketing. He's a thought leader, speaker and disruptor who is a passionate supporter and ally of the emerging talent in Scotland's data sector. He's also a husband, a dad and a dog dad. Calum's also a huge fan of basketball, which he coaches in his free time. Welcome to the show, Calum Mather. How are you doing, fella?
Hello, Rob. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm well, mate. And this is one of these ones, this has been a long time in the making, but I am buzzing to finally get you in the studio, my guy.
Good to hope it goes to expectations, really.
So do I. Calum, I think, as alluded to there, thanks very much for agreeing to join me. And you and I have known each other for more years now than I care to mention. But for the benefit of the audience, can you tell us your story? Where did you come from? What's been your journey in data? Where are you
now? I'll start at the beginning, I suppose.
The beginning?
As most people do. My parents were both teachers, so I've come from a very kind of educational background where kind of focused on learning and kind of, I suppose, personal development, I suppose, as well. This kind of comes from education. So my dad especially was a guidance teacher, so that kind of supportive in the community, making sure that the kids were well looked after, and going that extra mile just to make sure, kind of attending child hearings and things like that, just to make sure people were well supported in their own kind of life as well. Dad was also a basketball coach, so that kind of ethic kind of started early. It's probably kind of laterally that I realised some of the achievements he's kind of had as well. So that's been kind of fantastic, kind of reviewing some of his stuff. And that's where kind of got into education, went through university, did a math, statistics and finance degree at Strathclyde.
Right.
I think I was one of the first ones to go on that course, and it's still running to this day. So that's a number of years now. Came out of university, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think the structure of the course through university was quite good in terms of the topics it covered, and it was a kind of quite a broad course rather than a pure maths course. So I think I quite enjoyed that. Came out of university kind of thinking, well, what do I do next? What can I do with this degree? And I spoke to my sister-in-law who was involved in IT at the time down south, and she suggested IT. It was a new thing in the block, that the internet had just kind of started.
Okay.
It was that long ago. No, not quite started, but so I started on an IT postgrad course.
Right.
Doing wee bits of development, SQL and access databases and all sorts of stuff like that. So quite enjoyed that. But didn't quite know where I was going after that.
Mm-hmm.
How did I kind of make that step from academia into the kind of real world? So I ended up in a few kind of temporary jobs and things like that, and tried to kind of find my feet. And ended up at Diageo in Glasgow.
Right. Yep.
And started that, I kind of got involved in a project management system where they're looking at resourcing and the cost of people doing the work and so on, which was an incredibly kind of hard sell to kind of go through, because it wasn't something that people were kind of accustomed to. It was very much still, back of the fag packet stuff in terms of planning. And there was kind of adoption of technology into this kind of environment was quite difficult. So tried to do some training courses and things like that, and I didn't really think I was getting the kind of buy-in of people. So I tried to kind of just plug away. But being early 20s at the time, it was quite difficult to really kind of get a kind of foothold in things. So it turns out that I was made redundant from there eventually, unsurprisingly, because this system hadn't kind of been taken on. So
and
and ended up at HLB Kidson, which is an accountancy, turned into Baker Tilly,
Right.
and got involved there in a time and fees system that they were adopting in there. There was a lot more kind of supportive environment. The boss I had was fantastic in terms of, you know, great domain knowledge, and had a great kind of understanding of what was needed in terms of this transformation project really that we're having. So I started to get involved in Oracle development,
Right.
and doing some PL SQL, and kind of doing some of the kind of forms and all the rest of it. At that point, the merger between Kidson's and Baker Tilly happened, so that kind of came to a grinding halt, which saw me kind of take a kind of turn a wee bit and doing more .NET development, still within time and fees and all the rest of it. But they were based down in the south of England, so there was probably less supportive environment. And that was through no sort of fault of anybody really. It was just that was just what kind of happened. Still found that the people I was working with were fantastic, but if you're not kind of around people at the time and you're kind of trying to learn stuff, then it becomes a hell of a different kind of position.
Yeah, as a lot of people have kind of discovered over the course of the last couple of years, which for all the benefits of that hybrid or work from home model, there can be some challenges around the osmosis in learning and development.
Yes, definitely. I like that word, osmosis.
It's a great word.
Because I know it was a panel you had with was it Digit Expo about a year and a half ago, and it was Elizabeth Hollinger, I think, said osmosis. I've got it actually written down a wee note post up here, so so I'm kind of picking that one up. So yeah, having that kind of people around you to kind of learn, kind of really kind of get kind of understanding of technologies from is all important.
So what happens after the Oracle bit? So where are we?
We're Oracle.net, some SQL in there as well, obviously, and then it was all kind of Microsoft kind of based, so SQL Server as well. Moved from there to Invicas, which was a debt management company, and insolvency. So it was still around kind of fees and so on. It's still a kind of very fee-based company. So there's that kind of common theme, I suppose, at that point. Still involved in development of data, but there was probably more on the business side of things, trying to link up systems, trying to get it from there's your pound spent in marketing. How does that come out in terms of the kind of profitability, and trying to kind of make that understanding through the journey of the full kind of process through many disparate systems and trying to get them to speak to each other. So that was probably a bit more of the kind of integration work, understanding more about the business, getting involved in marketing meetings and talking about advertising, TV and so on. So that was quite a kind of good growth spurt for me, I think, in terms of understanding the business side of things. Data's great to understand, but until you actually understand the business, then it's a very kind of you could be going off on one tangent to kind of try and develop stuff you don't understand what's actually needed at the end of the day. From there was a bit more development where they went did some Salesforce development. So I did a wee bit of Salesforce at that point. And that was just something else for me to kind of learn in terms of what was it, Powerforce? That was it's been a while since I've done it, so I have to know a bit of that. And then Invicas became insolvent itself, so the insolvency company went insolvent. And I had a number of kind of positions that I was kind of potentially looking at. And I think Innovate was probably my third choice. But being a small company, being a bit kind of uncertain about what was involved in kind of joining a small company, but working with kind of bigger clients, being quite a kind of introverted person and dealing with clients and things like that was a bit of a kind of leap. But yeah, it was a perfect choice. Came in, did a bit of SaaS development, and sort of the journey kind of continued from there on in terms of Innovate.
Okay, brilliant. So we're going to I'm going to come back to talk about the experience at Innovate in a bit more detail, but there was a few things that you mentioned there in your early career, and I suppose the question here is, how has your career journey shaped your views around early careers? What in your experience has led to you having the opinions that you have now?
I think having that support around you, having the right people to kind of communicate with, deal with, is also all important. Been through the kind of environments where you're just kind of left to go on with things in kind of early stages and kind of expected to deliver on something. When if you don't know about the business, you don't know, you're trying to find your feet in terms of technology at the same time and trying to learn process and things like that. It's a hell of a big task to kind of achieve some sort of deliverable from that. But having people around you that understand what you need, understand where your development should be going when you don't yourself, is all important. They've got a kind of bigger picture of things. When early career, you're fairly kind of fresh down the gills. You're really trying to understand what work is about, what technology is, what the whole kind of big bad world is all about, really.
I had a very similar experience, although I wasn't young. I mean, I'd had a career, I'd done things, and then I'd given it all up, and I came back to university. And I came out of university at 30, an experienced person, but I started in what was then very, kind of late 1990s, early 2000s recruitment industry. And a couple of jobs I had were very much sink or swim. Not the kind of structured, supportive and nurturing environment that now, with my experience, I insist upon for people coming through. But very much a case of, as you say, trying to absorb understanding business, trying to understand new techniques, understanding new technologies. And the fundamental there is, we'll hire 10, and if 3 make it, then great. And that's not a great experience to be on the end of. And did some of the work that you were involved in back there, did you kind of have that feeling that it was maybe not, you as a human being weren't being given the framework to succeed? It was more of a case of, well, if you make it, you make it kind of thing?
I think so. I think certainly when you go back to Diageo, it was very much, well, we don't think this is going to work, but we'll throw it at and see if it sticks. If it's if at the end of it something kind of that comes out the other end, fantastic. It's a win for them. But I think it was very much, well, we know what's best. We've got the experience. What do you know?
And I suppose to the point you alluded to earlier on, but when that's maybe an older established traditional business, and you're coming from a newer sector, you can sometimes get that either passive or active resistance to change, and that's an impact. Okay, so come back to Innovate then, and this is the one that I really wanted to talk to you about in terms of that progression. So tell me more about, you get the job at Innovate, you come into Innovate, and then I've just looked through and I've got business intelligence consultant, HR manager, general manager. How did that progression happen, and what drove that change?
I suppose the first 18 months I was on site with Royal Bank of Scotland. So with that kind of gives you a good outlook on what's involved to be a consultant, and what Innovate kind of was at the time. Where I think it was a kind of good group of people, and everybody was doing their consultancy work. It was very much there's maybe only, I don't know, it was about 8 or 9 people in the company at the time, and 4 of us were new in the door together. And I think there probably were a few processes and so on that weren't as great as they could be. The potential was there. Potential was always there, but it was just making sure that it all kind of functioned and everybody felt as if they're part of something. When you're doing consultancy work and you're working with a client, then quite often you feel as if they're part of their team, but not necessarily part of consultancy. So I kind of dropped Brian, who's the boss, an email just to kind of say, look, this could be doing better, we could be doing better with that, so on and so forth. He was me, fresh in the door thinking that he knew it all. And I think Brian kind of bought it. He kind of went,
Right.
right, okay, let's see what you've got.
Okay, brilliant,
Um,
brilliant.
and I started off just recruiting people, so I was
Right.
getting people in the door,
Mm-hmm.
which I really enjoyed. It was fantastic to kind of get new blood into the company. And then we'll set about trying to put a bit more structure in place so that new people coming in were well supported, making sure that we had some structure in terms of development plans,
Mm-hmm.
and also look to incentivize some of the development as well. So that if
Okay.
you're starting to learn new technologies, you should be rewarded for that because you are growing, you're making yourself a more sellable person as a consultant. Therefore, let's make sure that you're seeing the benefit as much as the company is.
So there was almost like an opportunity there. There was almost like an open goal for you to
Yes.
shoot into. Was there any indication in any of your previous roles that this was something that you were going to have an aptitude towards or an interest in?
I think there probably were 2 or 3 occasions when I could have made that step.
Right,
It was almost kind of overlooked a wee bit. I
right.
was probably a wee bit disappointed that it was kind of overlooked because I could have thought, well, I could do as good a job as them, but it was,
Yeah,
I just wasn't the right place at the right time.
yep, yep. Which has obviously had an impact on the way you are now, which is trying
Yeah,
to create scenarios for people to be in the right place at the right time. Okay, brilliant.
definitely.
Which takes us on to, I suppose, the central thrust of why I invited you to be on the show. We're here to talk largely about early careers in the data sector. And obviously, that'll have a UK-centric focus, Scotland-centric, UK-centric focus. From that perspective, in a general loose sense, how do you think we're doing in attracting and securing fresh talent into the sector?
I think from what I'm kind of seeing, there's a lot of good kind of talent coming into industry. There's a lot of companies that are looking towards graduate placements. Where I'm hearing about, people at NatWest are trying to get the apprenticeships running, and they are starting to come into the teams to replace far more experienced people, which is fantastic to see. I'm hearing about a few other kind of good graduate placements that are kind of going on. That I'm not going to mention because they're with rival companies, so let's not mention them.
Let's not big up the competition.
But yeah, I think
Yeah,
there's a lot of good work happening in the space. If you extend it down the way, then you're to things like Code Clan, which is
yeah,
unfortunately kind of
yeah. It was
gone. But
unfortunate.
hopefully we can see something similar that's kind of brought about by the Scottish government. Hopefully we can do something around that. But you've also got good organisations like the Data Lab, which is doing fantastic work in data science primarily.
Mm-hmm.
But I keep on trying to prod them about other things around data engineering, because that's where our kind of interest lies a wee bit. But I think data science is always seen as the kind of big, sexy beast that it is in the future. So I think I can understand where they're kind of going with that. We've also got a number of other kind of organisations like Tech We Can, Tony Scullion at Dress Code,
Tony,
and so on. So there's a lot of good work happening across the industry. But yeah, we just need to make sure it's all kind of coming together and developing the right people at the right time.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, and it was something that when I was heavily involved, I did point out this sort of fixation with data science. Data science, the sexiest job of the 21st century. Yeah, well, it ain't that sexy if you can't find engineers to productionize what you're trying to build.
Yes,
You've mentioned there that there possibly could be one or two areas where improvement could be made. How do you think we could improve the model on a local or a national level? What would next step up look like?
I think I've been involved in a few kind of discussions, kind of around this a wee bit, and I think there needs to be a better link up between academia and companies, organisations, to make sure that they're delivering the right people with the right kind of background, not necessarily the right technologies, because technologies can be learned. Because technology is always going to be evolving. So the next 20 years of someone's career, they're always going to be learning something new. So being able to kind of provide the structure and ability to learn is all important. But again, we need some sort of national kind of organisations to be able to kind of do this, because it's someone needs to kind of take the responsibility. It can't just be up to academia, who have their own kind of reasons for doing things, and it takes a lot longer for them to kind of turn around courses and being able to make these changes to what they're kind of producing. And there's, you know, there has to be a kind of profitability around doing the work for companies. So, you know, it's not just, you know, not just doing things for charity. You know, they've got to be able to kind of make sure that people coming in are the right people with the right skills, and they can't spend an over amount of time to kind of develop them, because they still need to get things delivered. So having something in between there and being able to kind of provide that massive step between academia and the kind of corporate world is all important.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I remember being involved in the Scotland AI strategy discussions in the working groups. And one of the things that the little group that I was in had kind of proposed as an idea was this theoretical, almost academy, if you like, which was staffed, you know, 50 members of staff, 25 came from academia and 25 came from industry. And they would be like a national hub to ensure that the outputs of the academic departments were in line with the needs of the industry. Yeah. Because there is, as you rightly say, there is an agenda on one side and an agenda on the other. And through my experience, I didn't realize that those two agendas didn't really speak to each other. Yeah. I didn't realize how uncommon it was for industry leaders to visit universities and to sit down with academics and say, this is what we hire for, this is why we hire for it, and this is the skills that we need inculcated in people if we're going to offer them a job. It blew my mind that wasn't a conversation that happened every month. And obviously, it makes me a little bit afraid for the future, in that even after all the great work that's been done, it's only happening in isolated pockets. To your point, I think a national strategy would be an amazing idea.
I mean, just to kind of go a bit further with that I've spoken to some academics who've said, yes, let's get you in, let's get you talking to people, make sure that you're kind of on some of the panels to kind of discuss what the topics that are involved in some of the courses are. But I've had conversations with them, and that's all it's been. You know, it's kind of stopped at that point where, you know, we're willing to come in and help. We're willing to come in and do some work with the students you have. You know, whether it's a presentation in terms of this is what is involved in some of the work, or be able to kind of help with some of the skills training. I don't quite know, but we've never been taken up on it.
Well, there are a number of academics in my network, and I'm hoping that maybe one or two of them will be listening to this. So there's an open goal there for anybody that wants to reach out to my man Calum and get him in to talk the real talk.
Yeah, and it probably won't be me, to be honest. We'll get somebody who's far more experienced and has a far better understanding of what's involved in the kind of job itself. So, you know, I will help, I will facilitate, but let's get the real people in to kind of do the education bit.
Good stuff. Calum, another thing that you and I have spent many hours discussing in the past has been diversity, and the push for diversity over the course of the last 5 or so years within the data sector. Do you think enough is being done to ensure that the sector is reflective and representative of wider UK society?
Again, there are some people who are doing great work, like Auticon are doing their bit. There's you know, Text You Can and so on are sort of doing the bit for the non-male sort of sector of the population. There's Code First Girls and so on as well. So, you know, they're doing some great work. But again, it comes back to industry. We need to make sure that we're casting the net wide enough that we are able to get people from different backgrounds. Too many people are going to going, well, we'll have graduates. You know, okay, we're running a graduate scheme because it's easy for us to do. But, you know, if we were looking for a more diverse kind of population, then yes, it is into graduates, it is into people with different kind of socio-economic backgrounds and so on. That's where we kind of need to go to. Being a small company, that we've kind of focused more on the kind of graduate side of things because that's what our clients desire as well. If we sort of take that down a level and look at apprenticeships and so on, then we need to kind of change some of the work we're doing to be able to achieve that as well.
Okay, and you mentioned Auticon there, and big shout out to Emma from Auticon in Scotland, who I've collaborated with in the past, and has doing some great work around that whole neurodiverse piece, which I think is hugely important. I have that same view, and you touched on it towards the end there, which is around that socio and economic diversity. I have always had a bit of a fear that what we could be doing inadvertently is, as much as we're generating diversity across areas like gender or maybe some of the other protected characteristics, what we're not ensuring is that it's fully reflective of society, because
yes.
There does seem to be a quite hard and fast barrier to entry into the data industry, which is you have to have a degree in most cases. So it's just something I would like to see shifting at one point, but I do recognise that a lot of the jobs maybe necessitate that level of education. And I don't know what the answer is, but it's just something that I'm kind of concerned about.
I think it's providing the stepping stones.
Yeah.
Not everybody that's not gone to university couldn't do data science work.
Yep. True.
It's just making sure that we give people opportunities and don't keep on recruiting from the same pool of people.
Yeah.
It's just a big merry-go-round of people kind of going, right, their experience, we'll take them, we'll take them, we'll take them. As the volume of work increases, we've got to look at how we get people into the industry. And by going into that kind of the lower levels in terms of experience, you get a far more diverse bunch of candidates. That the number of people we've recruited that have been female through our graduate scheme has been completely opposite to the way the industry is reflected in terms of gender. So there are plenty of people that are knowledgeable, who are capable, and who are will do fantastic things out there. So let's keep on bang that drum in terms of going back to the sort of early careers people.
Yeah, and I think, and you mentioned it earlier on, and I'm kind of focusing in on this idea about the creation of opportunity. That if organisations could recognise that the most important thing here is create an opportunity and support somebody regardless of background, look at their potential, look at their promise, where they might go to if you can create an opportunity for them, and then support them through that journey. We could have a far stronger, more diverse, and ultimately more effective and I'm trying to think of the word here, successful data sector as a consequence.
Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you again there. So
go, more interruption. Go.
I think sometimes the experienced people are doing the same job all the time, so they are kind of standing still a wee bit. If you actually get somebody who's able to learn and has the passion to kind of progress their career, you can see them go flying past the people that are more experienced. It'll take more time at the start to kind of get them up to that speed, but let them loose and they'll go flying past the people that are standing still.
A very good point. We've spoken in the past. You're a very vocal, and you've mentioned about it quite a few times already on the show. You're out there supporting graduate talent streams. You always have. It's how you and I first started speaking. But we've also discussed apprenticeship schemes, graduate apprenticeship schemes. What are your views on that particular talent stream? Is that a route that you might consider in future?
Yeah, I think it is something we've got to consider going forward. We've had plenty of people through the company that haven't been graduates. It hasn't shown up to be a bad person or incapable or anything like that. They've been able to do the job really well. If you could have put them together with somebody who's a graduate, you wouldn't tell the difference. It's just making sure that, again, getting them up to speed, giving them opportunity, selecting the right people. There'll be people who are graduates that are just not suitable for our role, and there'll be somebody who comes through an apprenticeship who isn't suitable for our roles. It's just making sure that we pick the right people that are wanted to learn, people that are capable of learning. That's really where we want to get to. But again, it comes back to we've got to sell that to our clients, be a consultancy. We've got to make sure that they are not just looking for the graduates, that they are not, we've worked with a lot of people that are named resource in the past, so we've not been able to swap them out for other people. So if we transition more to project work with smaller companies, then we have more ability to then put people into projects that are not the graduate types. They're not not come out of St Andrews, or I've into people that've come out as rocket scientists out of Oxford, and they're not suitable for the job. So it's just making sure you focus on the people and making sure that you can upskill them as well.
Do you feel that there's maybe a bit of work here for the client to do? Because in that consultancy relationship, and you mentioned there the name consultant, do you think that what you need to, maybe there's an education piece there where as the consultancy, you have to educate the client that what's important here is the output, not necessarily the person who delivers the output? Is that something that maybe we could be doing wider as a sector?
Yes, I think so. I think that there's, it shouldn't just be about the person. When you're dealing with a consultant, you're dealing with the company behind them as well.
Yeah.
Not just that one person.
Mm-hmm.
You're dealing with a kind of guys that are supporting them that've got 25, 30 years experience in the industry, so that this person might look a wee bit fresh around the
around the goals,
but, they're still more than capable of doing the job, because we wouldn't recruit them otherwise. They wouldn't be in front of you unless they were able to do the job.
Okay. One of the other areas you and I have discussed in the past quite heavily has been that of kind of brand proposition. And you've been very, very active in developing that unique brand proposition for Innovate. How closely linked has that piece of work been to your work around early careers? And what advice would you give to anybody about to embark on a similar journey?
I think a few years ago we'd had a graduate program as well, and produced some great people coming through. But it's only been the last 3 years that we've gone back to the graduate program again. If I was selling, what our program is like, just have a chat with some of the people that have come through, and you'll realise how fantastic they are. Don't recruit them from us, but have a word with them. see the skills they've got. See how they've grown over that same period. See what is possible. Mm-hmm. And that I can't sell it any better than that. In terms of the people we have are fantastic. So the proof's in the pudding.
And has that been quite a deliberate? Because I remember talking to you and seeing some of the marketing collateral that you were generating around the brand proposition, the graduate proposition, linking the two of them together. So this has been a very deliberate strategy. You're effectively saying to clients, look at how great we are. We have this unique, this USP. Okay.
I think that's also kind of come out of the back of I talk about the perfect storm that happened in 2020. COVID hit us, Brexit restricted the pool of people that came in. Everybody wanted to change their technologies because of the cloud and the other kind of data tools that were out there. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, there was this explosion in terms of technology, and it meant that everybody was trying to grab the best people. Mm-hmm. At that point, we thought, right, let's look at growing our own people, because if you recruit somebody, you're still going to have to. They're still going to have to learn the technology you work with. They're still going to have to learn the business side of things as well. So if we focus a bit more of our time in terms of the graduates, it will be far more valuable and cost us less money, because we're not having to compete against everybody that's in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the kind of real driving forces behind what we were doing. That it was hell of a difficult to try and recruit people.
Yep. But you came up with this quite unique proposition that was attractive to people who were looking for a start into the industry, and then obviously providing the support and the opportunity meant that they then stayed with you, which you could then position to your clients as, look, we've got these great people that we've nurtured and grown ourselves. Genius idea. Coming up towards the end, last couple of questions, Calum, and it's a little bit of a future gaze, and then it's a little bit of a look back. So looking forward, it's a very different sector to what it was, say, 10 years ago. What do you see happening maybe in the next few years that might impact upon some of these early career strategies?
I I think as we find more sort of specialist technologies kind of coming into the market, I think there's a possibility of that gap widening a wee bit.
Right.
In terms of, in the past you'd kind of come out with Python, you'd come out with SQL, and that would serve you well. But you need to start learning some of the tools that are there and being able to kind of use them well. So that's obviously a bigger gap. That the marketplace is growing and growing. So perhaps a bit more domain knowledge and understanding what's involved in doing the job is more important, because that's one less thing you're going to have to learn when you're starting off in your kind of early careers. So over the kind of next few years, where's technology going? I'm not too sure, but having the kind of solid skills and ability to pivot and learn new things is going to be all important as well.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer in. I mean, I'm now 20 plus years doing this. You must be. I mean, when did you first?
A few years ago,
yeah. Yeah. We've seen those, and you spoke about Oracle earlier on. We've seen those huge technologies come and go, and I don't think that it's not going to be. We're not soothsayers or future gazers to predict that the technology stacks are going to change again 4 or 5 times in the next 20 years. But what I have seen has been that emphasis on, and I think in the show I recorded earlier, I said I don't like the phrase soft skills. I prefer the phrase commercial skills. Yes. Because if there's technological skills over here and there's commercial skills over there, the one thing that I've noticed has been far more of a focus on, particularly in your line of work. Yes. If you want to be in the consultant stream, then stakeholder management, communication, negotiation, the commercial skills that are taken as read in some industries have to be absolutely on point in the technology industry, or there are just certain jobs that you can't. And I think if we're looking ahead, I think that's going to become even more pronounced.
Yes. I think that's another of the main kind of benefits of our graduate program is that we have probably focused on those commercial skills, soft skills, the communication side of things, the ability to do the job really. With the technology in the background has been
not being overly fixated on the stack, because in the consultancy world you don't know what the stack's going to be. The problem remains the same, but the stack could be different. Okay, well, Calum, we're at the end. It's the final question, and we always conclude the episode with a trip in the Wayback Machine. And if you could talk to Calum from 5, say 10 years ago, based on what you know now about early careers in the data industry, what would you say to yourself?
I think if I went back early careers in the data industry, I've probably gone back more than 10 years, but that's been a long journey. I think data people in general are quite introverted, so that they're not going to be people that are kind of going to step forward or come out of their comfort zone. So I suppose going back that 10, 15, 20 years ago, I'd be more, don't be scared to make the jump.
Okay.
Don't be scared to voice an opinion. Don't be scared to come out of your shell a wee bit and really push yourself, because it's by breaking yourself that you mend yourself better.
I love it.
So,
I love it.
I think that's where what I would kind of say to myself, make mistakes, fail fast, fail quick, fail regularly as well, I think.
Okay. Calum, if somebody wanted some more of your pearls of wisdom, how easy are you to get a hold of, and what's the best way of getting you?
LinkedIn's always a good one. I like to think I'm a bit prominent in LinkedIn, so you can find me quite easily. I think I'm only one of 3 Calum Mathers in the whole of the UK. So
spam all 3 and you'll get the right guy.
So that, or drop me an email, Calum at innovateconsulting.co.uk as well. So.
And you're a regular at the kind of expos and fairs and conferences. Don't be scared to come up and say hello and say, I heard you on the Boston Data podcast and you seem like a great guy.
Definitely. I'll be wearing some Innovate
guidance. Usually bright. You can spot them a mile away.
or wearing some orange trainers or something. So yeah, I like to, for being an introvert, I like to be seen.
Good philosophy, fella. Calum, thank you so much again for taking the time to speak to me today. Thanks for sharing your passion, your knowledge, and your expertise on the theme of early careers in the data industry. I hope you, dear listener, have enjoyed the conversation as much as I have. And if you have, please take a moment to review the show on your podcast or video platform of choice, giving us 5 stars, obviously, and share this episode with anyone you feel would benefit from a view or a listen. Thanks. Please do look out for the other episodes in this podcast series where I'm joined by other special guests discussing topics relevant to today's bosses and data. Visit www.mbnsolutions.com for resources like our UK data salary survey, to watch recordings of our latest data meetup events, or to download our white papers, research and thought leadership. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram and Twitter for the latest news, views, opinions and, of course, hottest opportunities in the data space. Goodbye.